If you've walked down the supplement aisle lately, you know that choosing a vitamin is no longer a simple transaction. It's an exercise in detective work.
It really is.
You're not just looking for vitamin D, you're looking at D3 from lanolin, or wait, no, this one's from lichen. The market's just exploded. It demands we all become like amateur sourcing experts just to figure out what we're putting in our bodies.
That's so true. And that complexity really stems from consumer demand. People want efficacy, they want transparency, and they want it to align with values like veganism or the clean label movement.
Right.
And companies get it. They realize that just selling synthetic isolate isn't really cutting it anymore. So our mission today really is to cut through that marketing noise and give you the quality signals.
Okay.
We're going to break down the critical distinctions,
Yeah.
Between conventional synthetic vitamins and the three main types of natural supplements. We're talking plant-based, whole food-derived, and then fermentation-based. The goal is for you to walk away knowing how to select products based on actual evidence-based forms and transparent sourcing.
Okay, let's unpack this. Before we even get into the categories, what exactly makes a vitamin natural in the eyes of the sources we looked at? Because that's the foundation of this entire trend.
The core definition is all about origin and process. So a natural supplement, it has to be sourced directly from a plant or preserved within what's called a whole food matrix, or it can be generated through a controlled microbial process. The line is really drawn at purely synthetic, chemically isolated compounds that were created entirely in a lab.
So it's not just about the chemical name of the vitamin, it's about where it started its life.
Precisely. And that distinction brings us to, I think, the most crucial concept in this whole world.
Yeah.
The presence of the natural matrix components.
Explain that nuance a bit more. When you say a matrix, what are we talking about in practical terms?
We're talking about all the accompanying compounds that nature intended to travel with that vitamin. So things like phytonutrients, enzymes, fiber-like structures, cofactors. And that matrix, those components, they can fundamentally influence how the vitamin is absorbed, how well it's tolerated, and maybe even how the body utilizes it. It's a very different picture compared to a pure, isolated synthetic molecule.
So you're not just getting the nutrient, you're getting its biological support crew, so to speak.
You nailed it. That's the perfect analogy. This attempt to mimic how the body gets nutrients from a whole food, that idea of a more holistic absorption profile, well, that's the foundational idea driving this entire category.
That sets the stage beautifully. So let's dive into how manufacturers actually do this. We have three distinct paths, right? Let's start with the most straightforward one, plant-based vitamins.
Right. Plant-based vitamins are sourced directly from botanical extracts or, whole plants. They're really attractive because they align perfectly with that clean label story. And of course, they're often just straightforwardly vegan.
The sources gave some really fascinating examples of innovation here, especially for consumers who are trying to avoid animal products.
Absolutely. The most common example is probably the shift in vitamin D3 sourcing. Traditionally, D3 comes from lanolin, which is a wool derivative.
Right, from sheep.
Exactly. Yeah. But plant-based D3 is often sourced from lichen, so that gives you a direct, vegan-friendly alternative. Another great example is getting provitamin A compounds, like beta-carotene, from carrots or other colorful plants.
Now, beta-carotene is an interesting one because, as we know, it's not the final vitamin A molecule, it's a precursor. So what's the quality signal we need to look for there?
This is where labeling transparency becomes, frankly, a safety issue. Beta-carotene is a convertible precursor. Your body has to do the work to convert it into active vitamin A, or retinol.
And not everyone does that efficiently.
Not at all. The conversion efficiency varies wildly from person to person. Because of this, the label must express the dosage in retinol activity equivalents, or RAE.
So if the label just says 10,000 IUs of beta-carotene, that's a red flag. It doesn't tell me the usable amount. The RAE clarifies the potential active dose.
Exactly right. That RAE is the crucial quality check. And beyond that, any plant-based supplement really has to show evidence of rigorous quality control. So you're looking for third-party verification on the label, and you should insist on transparency with their COA, their Certificate of Analysis.
And what should that COA show?
Specifically, you want to confirm they've tested for heavy metals and microbial contaminants. And since you're dealing with extracts, they also have to be transparent about the extraction methods and what, if any, solvents were used.
That's a high bar for transparency, but yeah, it seems necessary for extracts. Okay, let's pivot to the second path. Whole food-based vitamins, or food matrices.
This sounds intuitively great, but I imagine it's a bit of a nightmare for manufacturers.
You're right on both counts. Whole food-based supplements are designed explicitly to preserve that natural matrix we just talked about, the fiber, the enzymes, the phytonutrients. The whole idea is to offer the nutrient as close to its form in nature as possible.
To maximize that synergy. But what are the trade-offs? It must be so hard to standardize. That is the major challenge. Variability. Because you're using a natural biological source, say a blend of different crops, you're going to face greater batch-to-batch inconsistency. It just comes with the territory.
And that affects the dosage.
It affects the final dosage consistency and, frankly, the cost. The pro is you get those potential synergistic phytonutrients. The con is you lose that perfect standardization you get with isolated compounds.
So if I'm a listener and I want to get that whole food benefit, how do I make sure the matrix integrity wasn't just destroyed by, I don't know, excessive heat during processing?
You have to look for robust label transparency. This means manufacturers detailing their processing methods. Are they using low heat or enzyme-activated or cold processing techniques? If they just dehydrated and pulverized the source material, a lot of those delicate enzymes and cofactors might be long gone.
So you need more than just marketing language.
Way more. Seek out detailed descriptions and clear documentation showing the integrity of that food matrix was actually maintained.
Okay, so if the first two approaches are rooted in the physical source, the plant itself, the third path is totally different. It's an almost industrial biological approach. Let's talk about fermentation-derived vitamins. This is where the reproducibility really steps up.
It is. And it's often considered the best of both worlds. Fermentation uses these controlled microbial processes to create vitamins in highly bioactive, reproducible forms. It's immensely scalable, often more sustainable, and it inherently aligns with vegan consumers because the vitamins are made by bacteria or yeast, not animal products.
And what are the main vitamins we see coming from this pathway?
We see a wide variety, but the most common are the B vitamins. They're very often produced through bacterial fermentation. The other, maybe more sophisticated example is vitamin K2, MK7. It's often generated through natto-like fermentation processes using very specific microbial strains.
I have to play the skeptic for a second here. If the whole food matrix is so valuable because of its natural cofactors, isn't using a microbe to synthesize a specific vitamin form, even if it's bioactive, just a clever way of isolating it? Is fermentation cheating the system?
That's a fantastic question, a really critical one. The difference is the output. When you synthesize a vitamin in a lab, you're creating a chemically isolated compound. When a microbe produces it, it typically produces the vitamin in its natural bioactive configuration.
Okay.
And it's often complex with peptides or other compounds that actually aid in its stability and utilization. So you get the efficiency and scalability of modern production, but without needing, say, petrochemical synthesis.
And for those of us on plant-based diets, this fermentation pathway is absolutely essential for one nutrient in particular.
Oh, absolutely essential.
Yeah.
Fermentation-derived B12, specifically methylcobalamin, is critical for vegans and vegetarians. The only reliable natural sources of B12 are animal products, so fermentation is the industrialized, reliable source for everyone else.
And for quality here.
You have to look for clear documentation of the microbial strains they used and real assurance of standardized potency.
That brings us perfectly to the next logical step. Understanding why the exact molecular form of that vitamin dictates how effective it is, regardless of where it came from. This is really the difference between just consuming a nutrient and your body actually using it.
Form truly matters, and understanding these differences is the key to moving beyond just basic supplement knowledge. Let's use B12 again. The synthetic form, cyanocobalamin, requires the body to cleave off a cyanide molecule.
Which sounds bad.
It's not great. And then it has to convert it into the usable form. The bioactive form, methylcobalamin, is favored because it's the plug-and-play version. The body can use it directly, no assembly required.
That plug-and-play analogy is really helpful. It sounds like if your body is compromised, or maybe you're an older adult with lower metabolic efficiency, that bioactive form makes a much bigger difference.
Precisely. You reduce the metabolic burden on the body. And that same concept extends to vitamin D. We generally prefer the lichen-sourced D3 over D2 because of its higher bioefficacy and utilization.
And what about the nuances of vitamin K2? The source has highlighted a really important distinction between its two main forms, MK4 and MK7.
This is a perfect example of form dictating function. Vitamin K2 MK4 has a very, very short half-life. It gets utilized rapidly in specific localized tissues like the brain and pancreas. It works fast, but it fades quickly.
And what's the counterpoint with MK7?
Vitamin K2 and K7, which is often produced via fermentation, has a significantly longer half-life. It stays in the bloodstream for a much longer period, and that makes it far more effective for systemic issues, specifically bone mineralization, and critically, for continuous vascular health. It helps make sure calcium goes into your bones and stays out of your arteries.
If we connect this to the bigger picture then, understanding these molecular nuances helps optimize supplement design for certain populations. It's why you so often see D3 paired with K2, right?
Absolutely. That partnership, D and K2, is a prime example of synergy in action. Vitamin D enhances calcium absorption, but K2 is like the traffic cop. It ensures that calcium is directed to the right places, like the bone matrix, rather than accumulating in soft tissues.
So a quality supplement would probably combine them.
A quality natural supplement, yes. It often combines the highly bioavailable lichen D3 with that long-acting MK7.
Now, even if you have the perfect bioactive form, you still need to get it past the stomach and into the bloodstream. Let's touch on delivery systems.
Right. This is where technology steps in to help the natural forms perform their best. For fat-soluble vitamins, A, D, E, and K, absorption is always a challenge. So we look for a liposomal encapsulation where the vitamin is wrapped in a little fatty bubble.
I've seen that on labels.
Yeah, or emulsified systems. These essentially pre-digest the vitamin, making it much easier for the digestive system to absorb. Enzyme-assisted delivery systems are also becoming key for improving the uptake of certain minerals.
That moves us logically into the realm of quality, safety, and regulation. All the sourcing transparency in the world doesn't matter if the product isn't actually safe and compliant.
Safety is paramount. Quality and compliance are the foundational signals of trust. You need to see evidence of independent testing and manufacturing under GMP-compliant standards good manufacturing practices. That confirms the facility is clean and the ingredients listed are actually what's in the product.
And for the listener, what exactly should that COA, the Certificate of Analysis, confirm, beyond just potency?
A robust COA must confirm three things, and you should demand this from any quality brand. First, purity. Is the ingredient what they claim it is? Second, a clean contaminant profile. This means verifying testing for heavy metals like lead and arsenic, pesticides, and microbials. And third, clear allergen statements. The COA is the paper trail. It proves the product inside the bottle matches the claims on the label.
On the safety front, the sources were really clear about potential interactions that consumers might just overlook.
The list of interactions can be long, but a few are critical knowledge for everyone. The interaction between vitamin K and anticoagulants like warfarin is maybe the most serious one. K directly interferes with how the drug works.
Right.
Separately, iron absorption can be significantly inhibited if you take it too close to certain antacids.
And the perpetual warning about fat-soluble vitamins.
I'll get to reinforce it.
The toxicity risk of fat-soluble vitamins A, D, E, and K is real. Unlike water-soluble vitamins, these get stored in the body's fat tissue. If you consume them at excessive levels over time, they can accumulate to toxic levels.
So targeted dosing is key.
Targeted, evidence-based dosing based on need is always superior to just taking high blanket amounts.
And of course, anyone in a special population needs to seek professional guidance before starting anything. Absolutely. We have to reinforce the need for clinician consultation for pregnancy, lactation, chronic disease, and older adults. It's vital. For example, during pregnancy planning, folate needs are higher. Conversely, older adults often have altered B12 absorption that requires specific attention to the form and delivery we just discussed.
Let's quickly summarize the regulatory environment, especially for consumers in different markets, because US versus EU rules differ greatly on what claims can even be made, and that affects what you read on the label.
That's a critical distinction. In the United States, supplements fall under DSHEA. They're regulated as foods, not drugs. This allows for what are called structure-function claims, like supports healthy joints, as long as they're substantiated.
But they can't say treats arthritis.
Exactly. Disease claims are strictly prohibited. You know what the supplement does to your structure or function, but they can't claim to treat a medical condition.
And in Europe?
Across the pond, the EU and UK are governed by EFSA guidelines, which are notoriously conservative.
Right.
They require a much higher level of evidence to approve any claim, even a structure-function claim.
How does that affect the consumer then, standing in the aisle?
It means a product sold in the US might say supports cardiovascular health, but the exact same product sold in the UK might have a much more subdued claim, or maybe no specific health claim at all. It might just list the nutrients. ESSA rules often push manufacturers to be very conservative with their labels.
So we've broken down the source, the form, the synergy, and the regulatory environment. What does this all mean for someone standing in that supplement aisle right now? What are the key trends driving quality? Where are we headed?
The overarching trend is definitely the clean label movement. Consumers are pushing hard for minimal processing aids, no synthetic colors, no artificial flavors, and regular publication of the COA is becoming the expected standard, not some rare exception. We are also seeing a major push in advanced delivery technologies. We mentioned liposomal and emulsified systems because they measurably improve absorption and tolerability. They prove that the delivery method is just as important as the source.
And the future is moving toward hyperspecificity with personalized nutrition, right? Taking all of this into account.
Absolutely. Genotype and microbiome-informed approaches are increasingly leading to tailored recommendations. This means eventually, your supplement isn't just for general wellness. It could be designed specifically for your individual metabolic need, knowing that your body, for example, is a poor converter of provitamin A and needs that RAE, correct active retinoid form instead.
Let's quickly tackle the common myths the sources debunked, because these are classic traps we all fall into when we're shopping.
The first myth is that natural automatically means safe. This is just categorically false. You must still check for bioavailability. You have to check for potential contaminants and interactions. Natural sourcing doesn't guarantee a clean product or safety for every individual, especially those on medications.
And the second myth is one we see in pretty much every consumer goods category.
That more is better. Also false. Higher doses increase toxicity risk for fat-soluble vitamins. And taking a massive dose when your body only needs a small, optimally delivered dose just means you're wasting money and potentially inviting health issues. Optimal dosing based on need is always superior.
So if we put all of this together into a practical evaluation checklist for the listener, what are the key steps when you're evaluating a product?
The steps are pretty clear. Check for a current COA that confirms potency and purity. Review the ingredient list for transparency. Clearly identify the bioactive forms, methylcobalamin, D3 from lichen, K2, MK7, and confirm third-party verification and GMP compliance. If you use those criteria, you can move past the marketing hype and make an evidence-based choice.
I think Dr. Lanery summarized our entire deep dive perfectly with this quote. When choosing natural vitamin supplements, prioritize bioactive forms, transparent sourcing, and delivery systems that enhance absorption. These factors often determine real-world effectiveness.
This raises an important question, though. We've talked about how targeted supplementation is key, right? It's often designed for specific metabolic gaps. But many people today rely heavily on widespread fortified foods.
Like cereal or milk.
Exactly. Nutrients are added to general foods, often using older, less bioavailable forms. So if the supplement industry keeps pivoting further toward this highly personalized genotype-informed nutrition based on individual needs, how should you, the consumer, balance your intake from that widespread food fortification versus these highly targeted personalized supplements, something for you to mull or explore on your own?
That's a huge question. Public health versus personalization. Thank you for navigating this complex market with us. Until the next deep dive, stay informed and stay curious.